Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm the Tilted Crown Gourmet. I've actually been out of the kitchen for about a month and a half. My video editor went on vacation, a well-deserved vacation. Therefore, we preloaded a bunch of content. However, now I am back and I want to start with my duck gumbo. Therefore, we're going to be going back to the South. I have started already with a few prep items. Therefore, we're going to roll up our sleeves. We're going to continue to get some prep done. And we're going to let's get cooking. I started this morning by roasting some duck bones. I did this in a 425 degree Fahrenheit oven, which is approximately 220 degrees centigrade. Now, I roasted these for about 40 to 50 minutes. I would recommend that after 30 minutes you go back and check because all ovens cook a little bit differently. What you want is this deep brown color because this is going to add a richness to your duck gumbo. In addition to getting my bones ready for making my stock, I've also gone ahead and smoked my duck breast. Now, when you smoke your duck breast, you can use what wood you want. I chose hickory for my wood that I use to smoke my duck breast. Therefore, let's go ahead and cut into this and let's see how we did. That is absolutely gorgeous. Therefore, my smoked duck breast is done, and earlier I also got some duck confit and I shredded it. And I added those bones for my stock. I prepped my vegetables for my stock, and that was 2 ribs of celery, we have carrots, and we have an onion. Later on, we're going to be adding in tomato paste, thyme, bay leaves, garlic, black peppercorn. These are stems from parsley. We're going to deglaze with sherry. However, if you do not want to deglaze with sherry, you can deglaze with water. Do not deglaze with a stock unless it's vegetable stock. Otherwise, you're going to start to muddy the flavors of your duck gumbo. I've rendered some fat in my pot. So with my duck confit, of course, you have a lot of skin. I took the skin off and I put it over a very low heat, and I just let it render out the fat from that skin and from the fat underlayment of that skin. And I'm going to utilize that fat in order to do my mirepoix and my bones to start my stock. I want to go ahead and get my veggies started. Once those have gotten going, I want to go ahead and add in my duck bones. We're going to add in our roasted bones. Oh, you should smell this. This smells amazing already. We should have smell-o-vision. It's really important that when you make any type of gumbo, that you want to layer those flavors. Layering those flavors really helps to elevate your dish. Next, we're going to add in our tomato paste. We're going to get that down to the bottom, get it mixed in, because we want to toast it a little bit. That helps to deepen those flavors. Remember, I said layer the flavors. Now we're going to deglaze. Now for me, the sherry does add a depth of flavor for this stock. It adds a little bit of sweetness. Just letting this cook for a little bit because I do want to cook off the alcohol. Go ahead and add in your thyme, your parsley, your bay leaves, your garlic, and your peppercorn. Next, we want to go ahead and add in our water. I need 2 more cups. Make sure you mix everything in. You don't want anything kind of sitting on the top. We're gonna let this come to a simmer. Now that we're at our simmer, actually we're at a bit of a boil, so we're gonna drop our temperature down because we wanna keep this at a simmer. We wanna make sure this is at a simmer. And we're gonna let this simmer for 2 to 3 hours. And at this point, you have to choose. Do you wanna put a lid on or leave it off? I tend to put a lid on. However, my lid does have a vent hole in it. So if you do choose to do a lid and you don't have a vent hole, make sure that you leave it slightly askew. While we're making our stock, we're going to continue on with our prep for our vegetables. One thing that I want to remind you of is your leek. Make sure you wash your leek, because if you take a good look, leeks are grown in sand and they are really dirty. Make sure that you cut it in half and wash it thoroughly. In the meantime, before I even get to that, I'm going to dice up some of my veggies for our gumbo. Now, I've always said it always depends on how you want your veggies. I tend to like mine as uniform as possible and a little bit on the smaller side. So even though, like for instance, this big end is going to be a little bit larger, that's okay. However, our thickness is going to be the same. So we want to go ahead and dice up our celery, and then we're going to move on to our onion. Now with this particular dish, I will not include the leaves. Oftentimes I include the leaves, like when I did my stock, I did include the leaves, but I'm going to stop just short of the leaves. I will not do the leaves. And all of these can go into one bowl because they're going to go into the roux at the same time. Now one other additional thing that I do put as far as veggie, so of course I do my garlic, my onion, my celery, and of course the leek that you saw, but I also add fennel. And to me, it just adds just that little bit of je ne sais quoi to the dish. It's completely optional, but I really enjoy the taste of fennel, and which is really weird because I don't like licorice. I really don't care for licorice. I don't like licorice liqueurs. I don't like licorice candies, but fresh fennel, I'm constantly adding to dishes that generally don't have it. Because if you remember, if you watched my video on my clam chowder, I added fennel because I just really like the taste of it. One thing I can always tell when someone else has been using my knives. So I was gone for about a month. I was called back to Asia and spent time there. And when I got back, number one, my knife holder was empty and all of my knives were sitting in the sink. And I was like, okay, that's fine-ish, because you really don't want to have your good knives sitting in the sink because things hit up against the blade and it dulls the blade. So I had cooked chicken and dumplings on Saturday. We had a guest that actually had accompanied my husband and I to Thailand, and he was feeling a little down. He had gotten a cold. So I said, well, I'll make either hot and sour soup or chicken and dumplings. And they chose chicken and dumplings. So I was making the chicken and dumplings, and I was using my knives. I was like, these knives are so dull. So since then, I sharpened this one, but it's still not quite back to the level that I like it to be. So it's a little bit more difficult to dice my veggies, because the knife just isn't as sharp as it really should be. And I'm going to tell you, one of the things that is the most dangerous thing in a kitchen is a dull knife. Now I'm going to go ahead and rinse this leek. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button if you happen to like this content. I did put a poll out probably about a year ago or so, and I had asked people, did they want seafood gumbo, duck gumbo, and overwhelmingly people chose seafood gumbo. So I've done several seafood gumbos, and I've done various variations, from a 45-minute version to one that the roux within itself takes at least 45 minutes to make. Usually for me it takes about an hour and 15 minutes to do that roux, because I like to make sure that I do it kind of low and slow, as I don't want to burn the roux, because roux is quite easy to burn. You really have to keep your eyes on it, otherwise it will ruin your dish. Burnt roux is no good. Even though you do want to get that nice chocolatey color, you don't want it to have any burnt notes to it. I will not be putting my garlic in this, because the garlic will go in later. And don't forget, with your peels and your leftover bits of your vegetables, save those, put them in a freezer, and use them to make stock. Either vegetable stock, chicken stock, duck stock. It's important trying not to waste as much as possible. Especially right now, prices are so high that I know that when I go to the store, I have a tendency to go to the store pretty much daily. And if I could get out of there for a few $100s, I'm lucky. It's just gotten really incredibly expensive to shop. Now, one of the reasons I'm getting this ready now is because I have obviously idle time, as I have about 3 hours to allow my stock to cook. And when I start on my roux, I really want to make sure that I'm paying attention to my roux and not utilizing that time to do vegetables and or meats or what have you. So I'm also going to be cutting up my andouille sausage during this downtime, because I still have about another hour and 14 minutes on the clock for my stock. Because once the stock is ready, I'll strain it through my chinois, and then I will start on my roux, and I'll take about maybe 30-40 minutes or so to make that roux. And during that process, hopefully we'll get some good footage showing you the color change of that roux. Now with the roux, I'm actually using duck fat and flour, because I'm trying to keep my flavors as clean as possible. You can buy duck fat from Amazon, or if you have like a boutique grocery store. So for instance, here we have a grocery store called Nugget, and we also have another one that's even kind of more specialty item, and it's called Cordy Brothers, and you can find duck fat in those stores. However, for larger amounts, I would kind of recommend maybe something like an Amazon. I believe that you'll save money versus getting the smaller containers of duck fat. So I tend to take off these outer pieces, or at least some of them, because they just don't necessarily look all that great to me. So I'm going to pull that off, and again, that's going to go in my stock. Now I'm just going to get this. You can do this a couple different ways. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slice it this way and through. That way I have a half. And then I'm going to go ahead and go across this way. And we're going to go down to where you have that core. But I'm going to go ahead and trim off the edges as well. And then the rest is going to go in for my stocks. And remember, the fennel, completely optional. However, as I said, I really enjoy the flavor of fennel, so I add it. It just adds a little bit of some sweetness, a little bit of like I said, a little bit of je ne sais quoi. Just kind of one of those flavors that you just can't quite put your finger on, but you know you like. Next, we're going to dice up our garlic. Now, how you dice up your garlic again? Now, you could run it through a mill. I think that's too fine. I just get my knife, run it through it, and just keep doing this until I get it to the level that I want. Because everyone likes garlic differently. And as I've said before in my videos, I really, really love garlic. So in my recipe, I will recommend an amount of garlic. However, I always use more. And if I'm not going to use more, I will definitely let you know during the audio portion of my videos. However, I generally use at least twice as much garlic as I recommend to other people, because I'm really a garlic lover, just like my love of fennel. So for me, this is a really good dice. It's not too fine, it's not too thick. To me, this is just right. So we're going to get this and we're going to put it onto our plate here, because again, this is going to go in later. It's going to go in after our other veggies, because we don't want to overcook our garlic. Because as I've always said, what do you get when you overcook garlic? The garlic becomes bitter. So we don't want to overcook our garlic, because it will become bitter. Next, we're going to get our andouille sausage ready. So I like to get my andouille and cut it at an angle. This gives you some nice obliques, but what it also does, it gives you some really nice surface area. And I think it's just a little bit of a prettier cut for presentation. Granted, yeah, it's in a gumbo, but still, just like I layer flavors, I also try to think about my finished product and how I want it to ultimately look on my plate, or in this case, in my bowl. Now we have our andouille. Our andouille is ready, and we're just going to set that aside. Next, I'm going to get our duck. Now, not our confit duck. Our confit duck is ready. So I'm going to slice up our smoked duck breast. Now I have 3 smaller ones that I'm also going to cut up to top my dish in. So I I'm gonna pull the skin off. So of course I cooked it with the skin and the fat. Why? Because I want to make sure that my duck stays moist. And just a note, I did cross hatch the skin and I did season it. And I seasoned it with just simple salt and pepper. I want to try to get all of our fat off of there, but we want to try to keep all of our meat. Get rid of the fat, keep our meat there. And now we want to thinly slice our duck, because this portion of our duck is going to actually go into our gumbo. Our smaller breast I'm going to place on top of each of our bowls of gumbo. It's going to be part of the presentation. And also part of the presentation, I would recommend that you use the top of the parsley, because we use the stems for our stock. So use the top of our parsley as well as some scallions. So when I cut this, I'm cutting it at a slight angle, and that piece is done. We're going to place that onto our plate. Now this was the piece, of course, that I had cut to show you how fabulous it looked on the inside. And just to show you again, doesn't that just look absolutely fantastic? Again, we want to make sure that we get our fat off, but we want to keep our meat. And again, cut really thin, nice thin pieces. And so some of you may ask, well, why do the cross hatch pattern in the fat? You know, why do that? Well, you're trying to render the fat. You want to render the fat, and by breaking it up a bit, that helps to render that fat into your meat. And you may wonder, why the color difference? This is the top where the fat was. This is the bottom that really received all the smoke, versus that's the top of that piece. As you can see, it's also light, but the bottom has received all of that smoke because it wasn't covered by the fat. Now, could you do this and smoke it without the fat cap and the skin? Absolutely. However, I really want to make sure that my duck is nice and moist. Now, these are the 3 smaller breasts that I have to top my bowls of gumbo. I've added our stock to our chinois. We're going to allow it to drain, and then we're going to start with our roux. Let's begin with our roux. So I have my duck fat here and my flour. Remember, it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Gonna turn on my pot. Now this has a bit of a heavy bottom to it. We're gonna add our duck fat in. Now, I want this to come up to temperature before I add in my flour. Now, the wonderful thing about induction is how quickly it heats things up. Because now that my temperature is up, I'm actually wanting to drop it back down. We're gonna add in our flour. Now, sometimes people say, oh, add it in really slow, but you can just put it in. Just make sure that you stir, because you want to make sure you get all those lumps out. You can also get a whisk and utilize a whisk, because you want a nice smooth roux. Now this process is going to take about 35 to 45 minutes. Make sure you keep your eye on your roux. You do not want it to stick, and you don't want it to burn. Remember, the roux is the heart of your gumbo. You really want to take your time with this step. You do not want to burn your roux. And when it starts to change colors, it goes pretty quickly. Keep an eye on your heat. If you see that it's maybe a little bit high, turn it down. But remember, we just want to take our time. Go all the way to the bottom. If you see, I'm going all the way to the bottom. I'm making sure that I'm keeping all of this up off the bottom. because I don't want any burnt notes in my gumbo. As you can see, the color is starting to deepen, and this is where you really have to pay attention because it can go very, very quickly from this kind of caramelly color to your chocolatey color that you're really looking for. And at that point, you're going to want to add in your vegetables because that helps to stop that cooking process of your roux. It helps to stabilize that at that color so that it doesn't over brown. And after I add in my veggies, I add in my tomato paste so that I can get it cooked, so that we get rid of any of that tinny taste. You get that nice sweetness and the umami-ness from the tomato paste. As you can see, we're starting to get our chocolatey color that we're looking for, and we're starting to get that nutty aroma as well. So we should be having a nutty aroma. There should not be any type of burnt smell. Just going to allow this to cook just slightly longer. I want to get it a little bit darker. So we have a nice chocolatey color. Now granted, you could go a little bit darker if you chose. I believe that this is good for what I'm looking for. However, you can go 1 or 2 shades darker. Now we're going to add in our veggies. Give everything a nice stir. Oh my goodness, this smells so wonderful. Going to add in our tomato paste. Get that nice and stirred in because, again, we want to cook off any raw taste of our tomato. Now what I want to do is I want to soften these vegetables. I don't want to brown them. However, while those are in, I'm going to go ahead and add in our andouille sausage as well. Make sure you stir to the bottom, especially in the center. Get me some stock ready because I'm going to deglaze shortly. Go ahead and add in your garlic, developing a little bit of fond at the bottom. Hence is why I have my stock so I can do a deglaze. Glaze our pan. Now we're going to start adding our spices. That's our smoked paprika, our cayenne, our white pepper, our black pepper, our allspice, and our thyme. Let that cook for a little bit. We don't want to burn our spice, but we just want to give it a little bit of a cook. Now we want to slowly start adding in our stock. And the reason we're slowly adding it in is because we don't want lumps. Now I have set aside about a cup of stock just in case I need to thin this out during the cooking process. Next, I'm going to add my Worcestershire sauce, and if you choose to use it, you're going to add in your fish sauce. Now we want to bring this up to a simmer. This is starting to simmer, so we're going to add in our duck confit. It's been a long day. Give it a stir, and we're going to have this simmer for 45 minutes. As this simmers, you're going to simmer this uncovered. Remember, for 45 minutes, simmer uncovered for 45 minutes. We are at the finish line, so we are going to add in our smoked duck, specifically smoked duck breast, because remember, I cut this really, really thin, therefore it's going to heat up really quickly. Next, if you choose to use it, you add in your miso. Make sure that we incorporate that. we want to whisk in our filet. And we're going to turn off our heat. Get some of our duck off of our whisk. Now we're going to add in a splash of sherry vinegar. I believe that the sherry vinegar does add a bit of brightness. We want to taste for balance. That's absolutely fantastic. At this point, if you need to adjust your seasoning, this would be the time to do it. You could add a little bit more vinegar, maybe a little bit more filet, or even salt. However, this is perfect just the way that it is, so it is time to dish it up. I have had these bowls in the oven on warm. They were 145 degrees. Try not to make a mess, but I'm gonna have to do some cleanup. And there you have bowl number one. Tonight I'm only serving two. Bowl number two. And I'm gonna try to be a little bit more careful this time to see if I can not get the gumbo on my rice. And we have bowl number two. Duck gumbo, reimagined with depth and refinement. Smoky, savory, bold flavors, silky textures, and a finish worthy of the occasion. Remember, your kitchen is your passport to the world, allowing you to explore diverse cultures and cuisines right from home as you explore new flavors and techniques. And as always, bon appetit.